The Blade of Sacrifice. The chamber where Elder Ashara kept the sealing blade lay deep within the Yurith stronghold, past corridors carved from living stone and sealed by wards that had protected this place for 3 millennia. Edrick descended the narrow stairway with his companions close behind, their footsteps echoing in the profound silence. The amulet in his pouch burned against his side, pulsing in rhythm with something ahead, something that called to his blood. The blade was forged in the final days of the war, Elder Ashara said, as she led them deeper. Her voice carried the weight of countless generations who had guarded this secret. When King Aldric realized the Devourer could not be killed by conventional means, he sought the wisdom of the ancient smiths. They told him that only a weapon bound to the bloodline that first wounded the Devourer could finish what was started. The stairway opened into a circular chamber. At its center, suspended in a shaft of pale blue light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, hung a sword. The blade was 3 feet of dark steel that seemed to drink in the light around it, etched with the same symbols that covered the amulet. The crossguard bore the sigil of a crowned wolf, the ancient symbol of Edrick's line. By the gods, Rose breathed beside him. Edrick stepped forward, drawn by something he couldn't name. The blade sang to him, a sound only he could hear, a keening note that resonated in his bones. When he reached for it, the light intensified, and the sword fell into his hand as if it had been waiting 3,000 years for this moment. The weight was perfect, balanced, right. Power surged through him, ancient and terrible and intimately familiar. Images flooded his mind. King Aldric standing on a blood-soaked battlefield, the same blade in his hand, facing something that blotted out the sun. The Devourer, massive and incomprehensible, a thing of writhing darkness and endless hunger. Aldric driving the blade into the creature's heart, pouring his own life force into the strike, binding the Devourer with chains forged from his own blood and soul. The sealing had worked, but it had cost Aldric everything. The blade requires a blood sacrifice, Elder Ashara said quietly. Not just any blood, but blood of Aldric's line, freely given. King Aldric sealed the Devourer by binding his own life force to the prison. Each generation since has maintained that binding through their existence, though most never knew it. But the bloodline has thinned over 3,000 years. You are the last direct descendant strong enough to wield the blade and finish what he started. Meaning? Edrick forced the word past his tightening throat, though he already knew the answer. Meaning that to permanently destroy the Devourer, you must do what Aldric could not, drive the blade through its heart and hold it there until the creature is completely unmade. It will try to consume you, it will try to corrupt you, and the blade will drain your life force to fuel the destruction. The Elder's ancient eyes held infinite sadness. King Aldric sealed the Devourer and lived, though he was never the same. But to destroy it utterly, that is a different matter. Shamaz stepped forward, his weathered face grave. There must be another way. Some spell, some ritual. There is not. Elder Ashara's voice was final. We have searched for 3,000 years. The Yurith, the scholars of Naswewana, the mages of a dozen fallen kingdoms, all came to the same conclusion. The Devourer is bound to this world by hooks too deep to simply sever. It must be burned out, root and branch, and only blood of the line that first wounded it can fuel that fire. Edrick stared at the blade in his hand. The dark steel reflected his face, but in the reflection he saw another man, older, harder, wearing a crown that looked like a burden. Aldric, his ancestor. The man who had saved the world and doomed his descendants to finish the task. How long do I have? He asked. Days, Illyria said quietly. She had been standing at the chamber's edge, her expression carefully neutral, but Edric knew her well enough to see the grief she was fighting to contain. The cultists are accelerating the awakening. The seals are failing faster than they should. Within a week, perhaps less, the Devourer will break free completely. Then we have no time to waste. Edric turned to face his companions, the sealing blade still in his hand. Rose's face was pale, her jaw set in the way it always was when she was fighting tears. Shamaz looked like he had aged 10 years in the past hour. Illuria's dark eyes were bright with unshed grief. These 3 had followed him through countless battles. They had saved his life more times than he could count. They were more than companions. They were family. And he was going to lead them. "We need to locate the Devourer's prison," he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "Find out exactly where the final seal will break. Plan our approach. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right." "Edrick," Rose started. "No." He met her eyes, saw the protest forming. "This is not a discussion, Rose. This is not a debate. This is what needs to be done, and I'm the only one who can do it." He looked at each of them in turn. "I need you to accept that. I need you to help me do this thing, not try to stop me." Shamaz bowed his head, his lips moving in what might have been a prayer. Illyria nodded once, sharp and final, the gesture of a soldier acknowledging orders. But Rose stepped forward, her hand gripping the hilt of her sword. "When you found me in Kirkwall," she said, her voice tight with emotion, "I was 7 years old, hiding in a cellar while monsters killed everyone I loved. You could have left me there. You could have ridden away, but you didn't. You pulled me out of that darkness. You trained me. You gave me a purpose." Her green eyes blazed. "So don't you dare ask me to abandon you now. If you're walking into the Devourer's lair, then I'm walking beside you. That's not negotiable." "Rose." "She's right," Illyria said. The rogue stepped forward, her twin daggers gleaming at her hips. "You gave me a place when my family was gone. You trusted me when others saw only a shadow. I swore to serve you, Edrick. That oath doesn't end just because the mission is impossible." Shamaz raised his head, and despite the grief in his eyes, a small smile touched his lips. "I fled Taboraz to escape a tyrant who demanded blind obedience. I serve you because you lead with wisdom and courage. If you think I'm going to let you face this darkness alone, you understand nothing of why I follow you, my king." Edrick felt something break and rebuild in his chest. He had thought he was protecting them by shouldering this burden alone, but they were choosing to stand with him, knowing the cost. "The blade requires my blood," he said quietly. "My sacrifice. There's nothing you can do." "We can make sure you reach the Devourer," Rose interrupted. "We can fight through whatever stands between you and that creature. We can watch your back while you drive that blade home." She stepped closer, and her hand found his shoulder. "You don't have to die alone, Edrick. Let us give you that much." For a long moment, he couldn't speak. Then he nodded, not trusting his voice. Elder Ashara watched this exchange with an expression that might have been approval. The Devourer's primary prison lies beneath the Forsaken Lake, 3 days' hard ride north of here, but the creature has been spreading its influence through the network of ancient sealing sites. The cultists are performing rituals at each location, feeding the Devourer's power and hastening its release. "Then we strike at the secondary sites first," Edrick said, his tactical mind already working through the problem. "Disrupt their rituals, buy ourselves time. If we can slow the awakening, we can reach the main prison before the Devourer breaks free completely." "There are 3 major ritual sites within 2 days of here," Illyria said. "I've been tracking the cultist movements for weeks. They're concentrating their forces at these locations." She moved to a map carved into the chamber wall, pointing to 3 locations marked with ancient symbols. "Here, in the ruins of Thornhaven. Here, at the Weeping Stones. And here, in the catacombs beneath Old Ravenhold." "We'll need to move fast," Shamaz said. "Strike each site, destroy their ritual circles, kill or scatter the cultists. It won't stop the awakening, but it might slow it enough to give us the time we need." Edrick studied the map, the sealing blade still in his hand. The weapon seemed to grow heavier with each passing moment, as if it understood the burden it represented. 3 sites, 3 battles, and then the final confrontation at the Forsaken Lake, where he would drive this blade into the Devourer's heart and burn the creature out of existence, even if it cost him everything. "We leave at first light," he said. "Thornhaven is closest. We hit them hard and fast, then move to the next site before they can regroup. Elder Ashara, I need you to send word to Captain Torvin at Castle Stormmoor. Tell him to mobilize the garrison and begin evacuating the villages near the Forsaken Lake. If we fail, you won't fail," Rose said firmly. "If we fail," Edrick continued, "the Devourer will break free, and the kingdom needs to be ready. Torvin is a good man. He'll do what needs to be done." Elder Ashara inclined her head. "It will be done. And King Edrick—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. King Edrick walked into darkness alone and emerged changed but alive. Perhaps there is more to this blade than simply sacrifice. Perhaps there is a way. Edrick wanted to believe that, but as he looked at the sealing blade in his hand, he felt the truth of it resonating in his bones. This weapon was made for one purpose: to end the Devourer permanently, and that ending would require everything he had to give. Perhaps, he said quietly. They spent the rest of the day preparing. The Yurith provided them with supplies, weapons, and detailed maps of the ritual sites. Shamaz worked with the Yurith healers to prepare medicines and protective charms. Aluria scouted the perimeter of the Stronghold, checking for any signs that the cultists had discovered their location. Rose sharpened her weapons with methodical focus, her face set in grim determination. Edrick stood in the armory, the sealing blade laid out before him. He had sent a runner to the Stronghold's library to bring him any texts related to King Edrick's final battle. Now he pored over ancient accounts, searching for any detail that might help him understand what he faced. The texts painted a grim picture. The Devourer was not simply a creature, but a force, an embodiment of consumption and entropy that had existed since before recorded history. It fed on life, on hope, on the very essence of existence. King Edrick had wounded it in single combat, driving his blade deep into what passed for the creature's heart. The Devourer had nearly killed him in that moment, wrapping him in darkness so complete that witnesses thought he had been consumed. But Edrick had held on. He had poured his life force into the blade, using his own blood as an anchor, and sealed the Devourer in a prison of light and will. The creature had been bound, its influence contained, its power locked away. For 3,000 years that prison had held. Now it was failing, and Edrick would have to do what Edrick could not: end the threat permanently, no matter the cost. "You should rest," Shamaz said from the doorway. The healer entered, carrying a steaming cup of tea. "Tomorrow will be hard enough without exhaustion weighing you down." Edrick accepted the cup, grateful for the warmth. "I keep thinking there must be something I'm missing, some detail in these accounts that will show me another way." "Sometimes there is no other way," Shamaz said gently. "Sometimes the path forward is the one we would never choose, but it is the only path nonetheless." He settled into a chair across from Edrick. "I have seen you face impossible odds before. I have watched you make decisions that would break lesser men. This is no different." "This is entirely different," Edrick said. "Before, I was risking my life. Now I'm giving it, knowingly, willingly, to save your kingdom, your people, your world." Shamaz's dark eyes held infinite compassion. "That is not a small thing, Edrick. That is the act of a true king." Edrick looked down at the tea in his hands. "I'm afraid," he admitted quietly, "not of dying, but of failing, of driving that blade home and finding it's not enough, that the Devourer survives, and I've thrown my life away for nothing." "Then we make certain it's enough," Shamaz said. "We strike the ritual sites, we weaken the Devourer's hold on this world, and when you face that creature, you will be facing it at its most vulnerable. King Edrick sealed the Devourer when it was at full strength. You will be destroying it when it is weakened and contained. That is our advantage." It was logical, sound tactical thinking, but Edrick couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something, some crucial piece of information that would change everything. The amulet pulsed against his side, warm and insistent. He pulled it out, studying the ancient symbols in the lamplight. The whispers were louder now, more urgent. Words in a language he shouldn't understand but somehow did. Blood of the first wound, fire of the final death. The cycle breaks when the king becomes the blade. Edrick's breath caught. "Shamaz, look at this." The healer leaned forward, his eyes widening as he studied the amulet. "Those symbols, they're changing. They weren't like that before." "They're responding to the sealing blade," Edrick said. "Both artifacts are connected to King Edrick. Both are part of the same magic." He stood, his mind racing. Elder Ashara said the blade requires blood of Edrick's line. But what if it's not just about sacrifice? What if the blade and the bloodline are meant to merge somehow? "The cycle breaks when the king becomes the blade," Shamaz repeated slowly. "That could mean transformation, a binding between wielder and weapon that goes beyond simple sacrifice." Edrick felt hope kindle in his chest, fragile but real. Perhaps there was another way. Perhaps the cost wasn't his death, but something else, something he couldn't yet understand. Or perhaps he was grasping at desperate hope in the face of inevitable fate. "We'll find out," he said. "One way or another, we'll find out." That night, Edrick stood on the Stronghold's outer wall, looking north toward the Forsaken Lake. Somewhere in that direction, the Devourer stirred in its weakening prison, growing stronger with each passing hour. Somewhere out there, cultists performed their dark rituals, feeding the creature's power. And in 3 days, perhaps 4, he would face that ancient evil with the sealing blade in his hand and his companions at his back. Rose joined him on the wall, her presence a comfort in the darkness. For a long moment, they stood in silence, watching the stars. "Do you remember Kirkwall?" she asked finally. "Every detail," Edrick said. "The smoke, the screams, finding you in that cellar." "I was so scared," Rose said quietly. "I thought the monsters would find me. I thought I would die alone in the dark." She turned to look at him. "And then you came. You weren't much older than I am now, but you seemed like a giant to me, a hero from the old stories." "I was terrified," Edrick admitted. "I had never seen anything like those corrupted raiders. I nearly ran. But you didn't. You saved me instead." Rose's hand found his. "So let me return the favor. Let me stand with you when you face the Devourer. Let me be there at the end." Edrick squeezed her hand. "I wouldn't want anyone else." They stood together on the wall as the stars wheeled overhead, and Edrick felt the weight of destiny settling onto his shoulders like a mantle. He was the last of Aldrich's line. The last king who could wield the sealing blade. The last hope against an ancient evil that had threatened to devour the world. But he wasn't alone. And perhaps, in the end, that would make all the difference.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.